The Porpoise Pool has been operating for 21 years with a 2.5 metre pool. However, it's now required to build a 3.5 metre pool by 1994 and a second 7 metre pool by 1999. Managing Director Heck Goodall defends the existing conditions.
We have no problems from Greenpeace or Project Jonah or Orca, the people who are responsible for looking after the welfare of marine animals.
Mr Goodall says due to the problems with the site, engineers have been unable to come up with a practical and economically viable plan for the new pools.
"48 teams from Newcastle, the North Coast, Sydney and Fiji are chasing the $10,000 in prize money, and included in the star-studded teams are around 10 wallabies that were on the successful World Cup tour of Europe. Slashing tries were the order of the day, and the large crowd thrilled to the razzle-dazzle rugby on show. Guest referee for the tournament, Mr Rugby Gordon Bray, and although a little hot, he was having a ball.
It's very hard. It's a bit like being in a sauna out there. It's about, I suppose, 38 degrees, and we just had two very good Sydney sides, Warringah and also Gordon, but very enjoyable, terrific atmosphere here, and it's a mini Hong Kong Sevens.
The semi-finals were being played late this afternoon, with the final scheduled for later. NBN News will bring you a full report on the Sawtell Rugby Sevens tomorrow night.
An attendant at the Paradise Caravan Park found the body in this annex at about 11 this morning and called the police.
The uniform boys had a look and called for detectives to come down, and consequently I came down and had a look. And with the situation, I just wasn't happy.
Police asked residents about reports of screams heard in the park just after 11 last night. But Detective Constable Maud is uncertain if that holds a clue to the death of the man whose name hasn't been released yet. But police believe he died in the early hours of this morning. Police say the deceased had been living in the caravan park for about 12 months and was well liked by the other residents.
A very caring man, very caring.
This woman, who wanted to be known only as Norma, said the deceased had been like a son to her and had only recently started studying again.
The last time I was speaking to him was last Monday, and he had high hopes of passing A's.
Police won't say if the body showed signs of injury, nor will they speculate how the man died. The results of medical tests will be available tomorrow. In the meantime, detectives are continuing their investigations in the Long Jetty area and appeal to anyone with information to contact them at the Entrance Police Station. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
It's the second time since Christmas that the Greater Newcastle Building Society in Adamstown has been held up. Last time, tellers were confronted by a man who told them he had a gun. This time it was a knife-wielding bandit. The tellers noticed the man loitering at a bus stop outside the Building Society. There were no other customers when he entered the branch. With a stocking pulled over his face, he leapt the counter and grabbed one of the tellers by the hair, demanding money. Throughout the ordeal, a knife was held to a 26-year-old female teller's throat. The man then fled with a substantial amount of money. Police were on the scene within minutes.
The tellers were both very upset, of course, and in a distressed state.
They were able to still furnish a fairly good description?
Yeah, they were very helpful to police, and hopefully that'll lead to an early arrest.
Police described the man as 175 centimetres in height, with straight black hair, in his mid to late 20s. He was wearing a red baseball cap, a red and grey striped baseball-style jumper and red tracksuit pants. He was last seen running south along Brunker Road.
If anybody's got any information about this incident, if they could contact Adamstown Police or the Armed Hold-Up Squad in Newcastle, that'd be appreciated.
Thousands of people of all ages marched the streets of Moree on Saturday, voicing their opinion to the possibility of a toxic incinerator being built in the Gurley or Ballata areas. Locals are concerned that if the incinerator is built in the area, it could lead to contamination of the land and health problems. Protesters began their campaign on private property by exploding a model of an incinerator, attempting to highlight the dangers of the poison and problems it could cause.
The people of the community will not allow it to go ahead, whether it takes, as I said before, civil disobedience or through the legal channels.
Meanwhile, a community consultation meeting was being held in Moree, hosted by the Independent Panel on Intractable Waste. The meeting was called to hear public comment on the proposed development and work to establish acceptable solutions about the incinerator, which would ultimately be presented to government. Minister for Public Works, Wal Murray, declined an invitation to attend the community consultation. Despite this, local residents continue their efforts in convincing the panel a toxic waste incinerator is not needed or wanted in the northwest.
It was the first time that the Hunter Valley Grammar School had hosted a rowing regatta, and the site for the 37 event program, the historic Walker Waterworks near Maitland, providing the perfect setting for competition, and crews responded from all over the north. Armidale was represented by New England Girls and the Armidale School. St Joseph's from Port Macquarie made waves, and Hunter Schools Irrawang, Warners Bay, Whitebridge and Boorrigal High entered crews. Along with the students, district rowing clubs also participated, including the Manning River, Port Macquarie, Hunter, Newcastle University, and for the first time, the reformed Morpeth Rowing Club. Competition was keen in all divisions from single sculls to the eights, and all rowers were eager to gain valuable points in the search for titles in this year's Central District Rowing Association Championships.
In spite of the downturn in the economy and the disappointing sales elsewhere, Armidale's Antique Show was voted a big success. Dealers from as far away as Sydney, Brisbane and the Gold Coast displayed a variety of wares and clinched the odd sale. Items available included a wide range of clocks, jewellery and dinnerware.
We've got something for everybody. Items from a thimble to a four-poster bed.
The new venue at the showground attracted record crowds, with organisers delighted with the facilities and the atmosphere. Also new this year was a display by an antique kerosene company and the attendance of a Royal Dalton expert. Gate takings will be donated to charities in Armidale, including the Confused Elderly, Life Education and the Lions Club Safe Site program.
Cessnock City Council's most pressing problem is too many roads to repair and not enough money to do it. But Alderman Marie Callaghan has discovered that her council is not alone in missing out on main roads construction grants.
I've written to 100 odd councils, 99 have replied and 65 councils have stated that all they're receiving is 3x3. They are not receiving normal grants, their roads are going backwards, they're putting staff off, it's not looking very good at all.
Alderman Callaghan says while the councils are receiving 3x3 money, that grant was designed to accelerate road improvement and not replace existing funding.
But what has happened over the last few years is that the normal road construction grants have disappeared in the country and all we're receiving is the 3x3 petrol levy. Now in effect our road funding has become user pays.
The Cessnock Mayor, who is also on the NRMA executive, is taking the Country Council's case to the motoring organisation. In a letter to be presented to the NRMA this week, Alderman Callaghan asked the organisation to support the current 60-40 split of 3x3 funds favouring the country. She fears that ratio could be eroded to tip the balance towards city roads. She also proposes that the state government be reminded the 3x3 levy is not a replacement for normal road construction grants. Alderman Callaghan believes the government has hoodwinked the taxpayer by cutting normal roads funding behind a 3x3 curtain.
We were told it's accelerated road funding. That hasn't occurred. Also, we were told that New South Wales road deaths were at a record low for the last 30 years, but they forgot to tell us that country road deaths are up 12.5%.
Two weeks ago, the Hunters farmers could do little but watch the fruits of their labour sink under the floodwaters. While those on the land have done their best to salvage what they could of their produce, rainfall of more than 200 millimetres in the Maitland area in the past 48 hours threatens to ruin their livelihoods for months.
We're starting to dry up the land, and now this rain's come. It's going to delay our working the ground, and it's going to delay us sowing the seed, and then it's going to be some time before we got any income again.
Of greatest concern to farmers in the Maitland area, they could be facing another flood. The State Emergency Service is monitoring the Hunter River after an overnight dumping of rain. Singleton alone has received more than 75 millimetres in the past 24 hours, so the SES is waiting to see what effect that will have on the river levels in the next day or so. The rain has not only been the bane of farmers, it's created a motorist nightmare. In this two-car accident on the Branxton Road at Rothbury, a 26-year-old Singleton woman was trapped for half an hour. She was flown by the Westpac rescue helicopter to the John Hunter Hospital with arm, leg and head injuries. And late this afternoon, in a three-vehicle collision in Chatham Road, Hamilton North, a female was pinned in her car and a man in his van for 30 minutes. Ambulance officers say they've attended dozens of minor accidents throughout the region today. In Cessnock, roads were rendered virtually impassable as water spewed across the bitumen. Cessnock Mayor Marie Callaghan says the downpour means more damaged roads and an escalating repair bill. The Hunters' average rainfall for the past 30 hours is about 80 millimetres, so the only birdies to be found on the region's sodden golf courses are ducks. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
Police spent the morning at the Melbourne Street address attempting to reconstruct last night's shooting. The wounded man told police he was at home with his wife and 5-year-old son when he answered a knock at the front door. The gunman opened fire from just a few metres away. Police combed the surrounding area, finding 4 bullet shells around the house and an expended bullet slug, all fired from a heavy calibre automatic pistol or shortened rifle. 2 of the shots struck the victim in the right leg. Neighbours were apparently unaware of the drama.
What did you hear? Just a bang. Well, I didn't take any notice, and the dog started barking. But I mean, they bark at a car, they bark at somebody walking past,
Although it's only early stages in the inquiry, detectives believe that by shooting his victim in the leg, the gunman aimed to wound rather than kill. Friends comforted the family this morning while the victim underwent surgery at Maitland Hospital to remove the bullets. Police hope to speak to him in more detail tomorrow and admit they are still baffled as to a motive.
He didn't speak to the man at all before he was shot, and didn't speak afterwards when he left via the back lane.
It's believed the gunman fled along a back lane, possibly to a waiting car. He's described as stocky with a receding hairline and full beard. Anyone with information is asked to contact Cessnock Police. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
The Falcons will spend the 92 season clad in red and blue, in keeping with the Knights and the Breakers. The club has a new stadium, a new sponsor, new colours, and tomorrow night their first big test, a pre-season game against the Sydney Kings at Cessnock.
Michael Gribbett returned to what was left of his home this morning after confirming that his wife and 2 young children had fully recovered from the effects of smoke inhalation suffered during their escape from last night's fire. He has no doubts that a smoke detector installed in the house at Christmas saved their lives.
Smoke detector went off. I tried to ignore it. I was asleep, but my wife woke me up and said it's the smoke detector.
It took Michael just a few seconds to realise that he had no chance of saving the house. His next move was to evacuate the family. Wife Sharon, 5-year-old Ben and their 9-month-old baby escaped with literally seconds to spare. If the alarm hadn't gone off,
we'd be dead. A smoke detector saved 4 lives. I mean, I've got 4 good reasons to be very happy today, and 1 good reason to be really unhappy, but the important thing is we all survived.
Experts believe the blaze may have started in a pile of clothing which had been removed from a dryer.
The clothes have probably built up some spontaneous heat and they've ignited in the early hours of the morning.
Irrespective of how the blaze started, firemen share the Gribbetts' belief that the outcome could have been tragic, but for a simple alarm available at supermarkets for a few dollars. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
World Championship winning Mercedes perhaps? Top of the range Ferrari maybe. Lismore car collector Robert Doherty can cater for almost every need. How about a Lamborghini? Yours for $45. Only problem is getting in the driver's seat will be a little difficult. In this converted bus, Robert Doherty is taking hundreds of model cars around New South Wales and Queensland, selling anything from $3,000 to $3,000.
We've got a range of everything. We've got some fantastic earth-moving gear from Japan. We've got some farming gear. We've got exotic cars such as Porsches and Ferraris. We've got some old vintage cars. We've got just about something for everybody, I think.
Now at Inverell, Robert hopes to trade his way around the state, bringing collectors old favourites and rarities.
We have a very unusual motorbike, a 1914 Alpine, which was produced by Matchbox in the days when Matchbox had little boxes that look like matchboxes. Late 50s, early 60s, it's quite rare.
Robert's collection began with a Lismore-inspired car. Since then, collecting has become his life.
Obtained the permission from Norco to produce a model car with their crest on it, and we produced 500 of them about 3 years ago. Been very, very successful, and here we go, here we are now.
For all time, and 2, if you order the books that they won't be touching or looking or even considering diminishing the floor. Thank you very much for attending. Tuesday night at Council for discussion, it was withdrawn.
Hunter Water's new secondary treatment plant for sewage begins operating in June. With the new process comes 3,000 tonnes of sewage sludge annually that somehow has to be disposed of. The Water Corporation has proposed dumping the sludge down disused mines at Burwood Beach in Merewether. Residents and Newcastle City Council have said no way, the council being so adamant it was considering legal action. But council last night decided rather than bringing in the lawyers, it would continue negotiating with Hunter Water, and that pleases the corporation.
We think it's much better for our officers to talk and to try and define the problems and work out solutions.
But Alderman Don Geddes says despite council's decision last night, the message to Hunter Water is still patently clear.
We don't want it, we don't want to approve it, we don't want to be a part of it.
Only 3 months before launching a 2-year trial of dumping the sludge down mines, Hunter Water has learnt of a similar practice in the South African town of Witbank, which went disastrously wrong. This is where the sewage will be pumped into the mines once the Burwood Beach plant comes online on June the 1st. The South African town used a similar system for more than 5 decades until about 2 years ago when it was stopped due to enormous environmental problems. The mixture of coal and sewage reportedly created an acidic cocktail that found its way into a river, killing marine life. Paul Broad asserts there are many differences between the South African experience and Hunter Water's proposal and maintains the environmental risks are minuscule.
For the last few weeks, there's been an air of optimism that the honeysuckle project would be mentioned in last night's statement, its absence engendering disappointment.
We in the Hunter and particularly Newcastle have looked at honeysuckle as a key catalyst towards the revitalisation and the moving ahead generally of the Hunter economies.
Also disappointed about honeysuckle is the federal member for Newcastle, Alan Morris. He's annoyed at the state government's lack of aggression about the Better Cities funding program. While Queensland, Victoria and South Australia already has its funding committed, he says New South Wales is still at the preliminary negotiating stages. Honeysuckle Advisory Board Chairman David Lamarchant was surprised by Alan Morris's comment.
He could have contacted the Honeysuckle Advisory Board, told us there was a problem, and within our best endeavours we would have tried to rectify the problem.
One announcement applauded by the region's business sector are the changes to Australia's depreciation and taxation regime. It's hoped this will promote both overseas and domestic investment in the region's industrial sector, enticing large companies like BHP to upgrade and expand. For example, a project over $50 million that is up and running within a set time period will be given a 10% tax deduction in the first year of operation. It's also hoped the easing of foreign investment requirements in the coal industry will promote investment in the Hunter's coal mines. On the roadworks frontier, $3.2 million has been earmarked for work around Cessnock and the Upper Hunter, plus the Newcastle Freeway Link Road. But the question everyone is asking, including Hunter Valley Research Foundation Director Dr. Wedge Paradise, is where will all the money come from? Dr. Paradise is sceptical about Keating's 4-year plan, which aims to generate revenue through a 5% growth in the economy each year.
A lot of us would wonder about that and the impact that may have on the current account and whether or not it will be just a case of a boom-bust scenario.
Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
School music groups took centre stage throughout the day, keeping the toes of foot-weary showgoers tapping. Toronto High performed a few blasts from the past, while Rutherford brought its rock band in a choreographed work entitled Raven. Country kids did their bit, coming from all over the Hunter to judge cattle. And while nothing was too good for pampered pooches and show dogs, prized milkers rested up before parading in the centre ring. Whalers, the type of horse used by Australian troops in World War I, came under the judges' scrutiny along with European warmbloods. The show's acquisitive art and photographic competitions have attracted a high standard of entry, with a strong regional theme and a painting deceptively titled Run Up, winning the traditional section. You can't please everyone, but tonight's program, including a precision parachute jump, should hit the mark.
It looks like it's going to be a nice cool night. We're expecting people to come in droves. A good ring program. The Holden Precision Driving team's on again tonight. The Showgirl Zone final will be, or local finalists I should say, will be announced. Coca-Cola fireworks and all the good things that are happening in the ring. So it's a fully packed program. And of course our street entertainers, which are also very popular, will continue right throughout the night.
Great, done.
Officially opening the centre today was the Minister for Land Transport, Bob Brown. The two-storey single-span centre covers more than 6,000 square metres, or the equivalent of a football field. Australia Post has invested around $10 million, some $7 million constructing the centre and $3 million in equipment. It's the only one of its kind outside a capital city.
About 130 million postal articles a year come through the Hunter Valley. That's a lot, and we should have a system to be able to effectively handle that.
A major feature of the centre is the German-designed optical character reader, or OCR. The machine is capable of electronically sorting mail by taking a video image of postcodes and sorting them into specific areas or suburbs. It can handle 35,000 items an hour. To achieve the same rate manually, it would require 24 people. But when the articles are too big or are rejected by the OCR because of illegible addresses, the mail is sorted by hand. Once sorted, either manually or electronically, the mail is placed in containers and delivered to respective areas. In total, some 420,000 mail articles will be processed each day. The speed and cost effectiveness of the system benefiting the consumer.
Well, stamps at the moment are 45 cents. We'll hold them at 45 cents for at least 2 years.
The second annual Guida Valley Field Day proved the perfect forum for more than 300 growers. It showcased the latest in cotton growing.
We're more interested in looking at the application techniques today, and that's why we've got some fairly high quality speakers to talk about various methods of application. Also we'll be having the aerial show that will be showing the various improvements of aerial application over the years.
Apart from an aerial display, growers were bussed to various properties and treated to exhibitions of new varieties and the latest in nutgrass control. A bumper crop in the United States has boosted world supply and depressed prices, in turn decreasing Australia's return.
World supply is perhaps up compared to last year, and consequently the Australian crop particularly comes under true market forces, supply and demand, and we're seeing prices in the mid to low 300s.
But with cotton still returning more money than traditional crops, it remains viable for growers. This year, with the weather's help, yields are expected to be high.
There's been some patchy rain, but it's still early days yet, and if we can get some good fine weather now through pick, I think things will be very good.
Until now, recycling facilities in the Lake Macquarie area have been at best limited.
It's an unaffordable operation for us to move around the community and collect it from the curbside.
So the council commissioned the help of Newcastle recycling company GTC to try to solve the problem. From discussions came the idea of a mobile recycling centre. The centre consists of a 10-tonne container for papers, Hessian bags for plastic containers and the truck for bottles. The $150,000 truck has been purpose-designed using Newcastle knowledge and is one of only 2 in Australia.
This truck has been purposely built so it can lift 8 containers at one time and still keep the glass colours separate.
From here, the products are compacted and transported daily to either paper mills, bottles or plastic manufacturers in Sydney. The ultimate result is our waste is removed and the environment benefits. These benefits highlighting the importance of recycling.
Anything that can be kept out of the tip will save the community money in the long run. In addition to that, why should we waste anything that can be reused?
The mobile centre will be trialled for 12 months. The plan is to extend it throughout council boundaries.
We hope to be able to set the example for other communities to follow.
Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
The game might have been an exhibition encounter, but you wouldn't have known it from the sideline. Heavy contact featured throughout, with both sides showing the willingness to mix it under the boards. The Falcons led by 6 at half-time, but with new American import Steve Hood coming to life in the third quarter, the Cannons rallied to get within 3 going into the final period. From then on, the wheels fell off for the Cannons as they continually handed over the ball to the impressive Newcastle Falcons. The final scoreline of 105 to 91, a clear indication of the Falcons' dominance in the championship period. "110 athletes, cyclists and walkers are combining to raise money for the Tamworth Base Hospital, and they are doing it the tough way. A 24-hour marathon in 31-degree heat is not your ordinary jog-in-the-park stuff, but they are a hardy lot, the ultra-marathoners, and most will still be there at the end, and a lot of kilometres will be covered.
The average 24-hour runner will cover, we've got Tony Collins here from Wyong. He was second in last Sydney-Melbourne. He'll be up around the 200 Ks at the end of 24 hours. I don't know what I'll be, 170 is my personal best, but then I'm 64, so they've got to allow me a little bit of grace, I think, there, don't you?
Cyclists won't be moving too far, but the concentration level will be tested. The walkers will be able to discuss the problems of the world, while the runners slog it out in the name of charity.
Mr Fay is in Coffs Harbour for a state government conference but took time out to dedicate the development site. Work is due to begin on the complex that will have 3 levels of education, being a University of New England campus, a high school and TAFE college. It is hoped the 3 centres will be able to run in cooperation to ensure the maximum use of facilities, leading to wide course coordination and joint program planning. 765 TAFE places will be created by the first stage of the development, which will have some $12 million injected into it. Prime Minister Keating's economic statement this week brought a welcoming boost to construction.
Will mean $250 million extra for New South Wales. I welcome that, and I'll certainly take every cheque that the Commonwealth Government wants to give us and that's honoured by the bank. I suspect we won't get the lot. In the meantime, at least they recognise the priority which the New South Wales Government has recognised. That is, in the TAFE area, we need to concentrate on developing vocational skills for employment.
The key training facilities for the TAFE College will be hospitality, tourism, business studies, computing and rural education, courses that are key growth areas in Coffs Harbour.
And of all places, the men have chosen to hit back on the netball court. The domain of Australia's femme fatale since time immemorial, even when it was known as basketball, netball is under siege by humans replacing skirts with shorts and looking very much like men, and showing very little of the grace and beauty of the female netball player. But on closer inspection, you will notice a great deal of ability when played by 2 teams such as the National Mutuals from Sydney and a composite state under-21 side. In all seriousness, today's exhibition match in Lismore attracted an enthusiastic crowd who appreciated the finely tuned skills of the men, and as Rhys Murdoch points out, the Men's Netball League is growing.
Seems to be growing more or less around the Sydney region, and also hopefully it will develop here in the country regions as well. If we can get a guys comp started, even if it's mixed, we're here to promote men's netball specifically, and hopefully they'll join the New South Wales Men's League.
And it was the light blue of the composite side that ended up winning the match in a thriller 25-21. And girls, no real need to panic just yet.